Second BRU, the eagle said, "My friend, cast a glance at how the land appears. The land has turned into a furrow. The wide sea is just like a breadbasket." When he had borne him aloft to third BRU, the eagle says to him, "To Anunnaki, my friend, how the land appears. The land has turned into a gardener's ditch." And then, as they continued to ascend, Earth was suddenly out of sight. As I glanced around, the land had disappeared, and upon the wide sea mine eyes could not feast. According to one version of this tale, the eagle and Atana did reach the heaven of Anu. But another version states that Atana got cold feet when he could no longer see Earth, and ordered the eagle to reverse course and plunge down to Earth. Once again, we find the biblical parallel to such an unusual report of seeing Earth from a great distance above it. Exalting the Lord Yahweh, the prophet Isaiah said of him, "It is he who sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as insects." The tale of Atana informs us that, seeking a Shem, Atana had to communicate with an eagle inside a pit. A seal depiction shows a winged, tall structure, a launch tower, above which an eagle flies off. What or who was the eagle who took Atana to the distant heavens? We cannot help associating the ancient text with the message beamed to Earth in July 1969 by Neil Armstrong, commander of the Apollo 11 spacecraft. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The eagle has landed. He was reporting the first landing by man on the moon. Tranquility Base was the site of the landing. Eagle was the name of the lunar module that separated from the spacecraft and took the two astronauts inside it to the moon, and then back to their mother craft. When the lunar module first separated to start its own flight in moon orbit, the astronauts told Mission Control in Houston the eagle has wings. But eagle could also denote the astronauts who manned the spacecraft. On the Apollo 11 mission, eagle was also the symbol of the astronauts themselves, worn as an emblem on their suits. Just as in the Atana tale, they, too, were eagles, who could fly, speak, and communicate. How would an ancient artist have depicted the pilots of the sky ships of the gods? Would he have depicted them, by some chance, as eagles? That is exactly what we have found. An Assyrian seal engraving from circa 1500 BC shows two eagle men saluting a Shem. Numerous depictions of such eagles, the scholars call emerald men, have been found. Most depictions show them flanking the tree of life, as if to stress that they, in their shims, provided the link with the heavenly abode, where the bread of life and water of life were to be found. Indeed, the usual depiction of the eagles show them holding in one hand the fruit of life, and in the other the water of life, in full conformity with the tales of Atana, and Gilgamesh. The many depictions of the eagles clearly show that they were not monstrous birdmen, but anthropomorphic beings wearing costumes or uniforms that gave them the appearance of eagles. The Hittite tale concerning the god Telepinu, who had vanished, reported that the great gods and the lesser gods began to search for Telepinu, and Shamash sent out a swift eagle to find him. In the book of Exodus, God is reported to have reminded the children of Israel, "I have carried you upon the wings of eagles, and have brought you unto me," confirming, it seems, that the way to reach the divine abode was upon the wings of eagles, just as the tale of Atana relates. Numerous biblical verses, as a matter of fact, describe the deity as a winged being. Boaz welcomed truth into the Judean community as coming under the wings of the God Yahweh. The psalmist sought security under the shadow of thy wings, and described the descent of the Lord from the heavens. He mounted a cherub and went flying, he soared upon windy wings. Analyzing the similarities between the biblical El employed as a title or generic term for the deity and the Canaanite El as slang in Semitic mythology show that both were depicted in text and on coins as winged gods. The Mesopotamian texts invariably present Utu/Shamash as the god in charge of the landing place of the Shims and of the eagles. And like his subordinates, he was sometimes shown wearing the full regalia of an eagle's costume. In such a capacity, he could grant to kings the privilege of flying on the wings of birds and of rising from the lower heavens to the lofty ones. And when he was launched aloft in a fiery rocket, it was he who stretched over unknown distances for countless hours. Appropriately, his net was the earth, his trap the distant skies. The Sumerian terminology for objects connected with celestial travel was not limited to the means that the gods put on or the mus that were their cone-shaped chariots. Sumerian texts describing Zecharia relate that it had a central part, hidden and protected by mighty walls. Within those walls stood the temple of Utu, a house which is like a house of the heavens. In an inner courtyard of the temple, also protected by high walls, stood erected upwards the mighty pin, an object that plows through, according to the translators. A drawing found at the Temple Mount of Anu at Uruk depicts such an object. We would have been hard put a few decades ago to guess what this object was, but it is a multi-stage space rocket, at the top of which rests the conical mu, or command cabin. The evidence that the gods of Sumer possess not just flying chambers for roaming Earth's sky but space-going multi-stage rocket ships also emerges from the examination of texts describing the sacred objects at Utu's temple at Zecharia. We are told that witnesses at Burner's Supreme Court were required to take the oath in an inner courtyard, standing by a gateway through which they could see and face three divine objects. These were named the Golden Sphere, the Crew's Cabin, the GIR, and the elongated, a term that literally meant advance or that makes vessel go, or what we would call a motor, an engine. What emerges here is a reference to a three-part rocket ship, with the cabin or command module at the top end, the engines at the bottom end, and the GIR in the center. The latter is a term that has been used extensively in connection with spaceflight. The guards Gilgamesh encountered at the entrance to the landing place of Shamash were called GIR men. In the temple of Ninurta, the sacred or most guarded inner area was called the GLR Su, where the GIR is sprung up. Gir, it is generally acknowledged, was a term used to describe a sharp-edged object. A close look at the pictorial sign for GIR provides a better understanding of the term's divine nature, for what we see is a long, arrow-shaped object, divided into several parts or compartments that the mu could hover in Earth's skies on its own, or fly over Earth's lands when attached to a GIR, or become the command module. Atop the multi-stage pin is testimony to the engineering ingenuity of the gods of Sumer, the gods of heaven and earth. A review of the Sumerian pictographs and ideograms leaves no doubt that whoever drew those signs was familiar with the shapes and purposes of rockets with tails of billowing fire, missile-like vehicles, and celestial cabins. GIR rocket's mouth showed a finicky GIR, or rocket, inside a shaft-like underground enclosure. Ash divine abode the chamber or command module of a space vehicle. Zecharia sent a command module taking off. Finally, let us look at the pictographic sign for gods in Sumerian. The term was a two-syllable word in GIR. We have already seen that the symbol for GIR was a two-stage rocket with fins. Din, the first syllable, meant righteous, pure, bright. Put together, then, and GIR as gods, or divine beings conveyed the meaning the righteous ones of the bright, pointed objects, or, more explicitly, the pure ones of the blazing rockets. The pictographic sign can easily bring to mind a powerful jet engine spewing flames from the end part, and the front part that is puzzlingly open. But the puzzle turns to amazement if we spell danger by combining the two pictographs. The tail of the fin-like GIR fits perfectly into the opening in the front of Din. The astounding result is a picture of a rocket-propelled spaceship, with the landing craft docked into it perfectly, just as the lunar module was docked with the Apollo 11 spaceship. It is indeed a three-stage vehicle, with each part fitting neatly into the other, the thrust portion containing the engines, the midsection containing supplies and equipment, and the cylindrical sky chamber housing the people named Danger, the gods of antiquity, the astronauts of millennia ago. Can there be any doubt that the ancient peoples, in calling their deities gods of heaven and earth, meant literally that they were people from elsewhere who had come to earth from the heavens? The evidence thus far submitted regarding the ancient gods and their vehicles should leave no further doubt that they were once indeed living beings of flesh and blood, people who literally came down to earth from the heavens. Even the ancient compilers of the Old Testament, who dedicated the Bible to a single God, found it necessary to acknowledge the presence upon earth in early times of such divine beings. The enigmatic section, a horror of translators and theologians alike, forms the beginning of chapter 6 of Genesis. It is